I woke up when it was already light outside my window. I had a habit of getting up early, even after I retired. It wasn't my house, my window, or even my bed, though. The room Evelyn and Noah had given me used to be their office. Now there was a narrow single bed, a dresser, and a small table. There was barely enough room to turn around. 43 years I'd lived in my house with Henry. 43 years of waking up next to him, making breakfast, and getting him ready for work. And then a heart attack took him in an instant, and life stopped. Evelyn insisted I move in with them in Rancho Cucamonga. "Mom, you can't live alone at your age," she said, and I was too devastated to argue. My house in San Bernardino had sold in a matter of weeks, and in my 67 years, I was left without a husband and without the house Henry and I had spent a lifetime building. I got out of bed quietly, trying not to squeak the floorboards. 7 in the morning. Evelyn and Noah are still asleep, but the twins, Oliver and Abigail, will wake soon. My grandchildren, 8 years old, were the only joy in this house. They were the reason I'd agreed to move. And because for the first few months after Henry's death, I could barely get out of bed. Life without him seemed meaningless. I went into the kitchen and started making breakfast. French toast was Oliver's favorite, oatmeal with berries for Abby, and scrambled eggs with vegetables for Evelyn and Noah. The fridge revealed a note. "Mom, don't forget to pick up the kids from school at 3 o'clock and take Oliver to soccer and Abby to the dance. Dinner by 6. Shopping list on the table. No please or thank you. Just a list of errands." I sighed, but continued cooking. More than anything, I wanted to see my grandchildren. Their sincere hugs and smiles were the best cure for homesickness. "Grandma Dorothy." Oliver flew into the kitchen first, as energetic and loud as ever. Behind him, yawning, came Abby. "Good morning, my good ones." I leaned over to hug them both. "Breakfast is almost ready." "You're the best, Grandma." Oliver was already sitting at the table, anticipating French toast. Abby hugged me silently and climbed into a chair. She was quiet and more like me than her mother. "What's all the noise?" Evelyn walked into the kitchen in a silk robe, phone in hand. "Mom, could you turn it down? Noah and I wanted to sleep longer." "Sorry, honey, but it's time for the kids to go to school." I set a cup of freshly brewed coffee in front of her. "Yeah, right." She didn't even look up from her phone. "Noah's picking them up today." "But the note?" "Change of plans," she cut off. "I have a meeting with a client, and Noah has work at home today." I nodded and set breakfast in front of the grandkids. Evelyn didn't even thank me for the coffee. Noah showed up as the kids were finishing breakfast. He looked disgruntled as usual. "Dorothy, did you remember that the plumber is due today? And we need to pay for the internet." He sat down at the table and started going through the mail. "I remember, Noah. What time is the plumber coming?" "Between 10 and 2. He shrugged without even looking at me. "The internet bill is on the fridge. Use your card. We're broke this month." I bit my lip to keep from saying too much. It wasn't the first time this had happened. Ever since I'd moved in 6 months ago, I'd been constantly paying bills out of my modest pension. Temporary, as Noah used to say. But temporary was becoming permanent. After the kids left for school and Evelyn and Noah went away on business, I was alone in the house. The plumber came at 11 and replaced the gaskets in the faucet. $200, which I paid out of my savings. Then I paid the internet bill, another 80. Looking at the remaining money in the account, I felt anxious. If this keeps up, soon I'll be left with nothing. Evelyn and Noah seemed to consider my pension part of their budget, but they didn't need to know everything. After Henry's funeral, I received insurance, a very substantial amount. Henry had always been prudent and wanted me to be provided for after his death. In addition, we had stock in several companies that even Evelyn didn't know about. I kept this money in a separate account and had no intention of telling anyone about it. At 2 o'clock and 15 minutes, I left the house to pick up the kids from school. The sun was blazing, a typical Southern California heat wave. I got into my old Honda Accord that I'd brought with me from San Bernardino. Noah kept hinting that it was time for me to get rid of it. Dorothy, why pay for two-car insurance? We can drive you whenever you need to. But I clung to that last bit of independence. After all, how would I drive the kids to their endless activities? Oliver and Abby were happy to see me outside the school. We went first to Oliver's soccer game, then to Abby's dance. While they were practicing, I sat in the car and talked to my friend Beatrice on the phone. "How are you doing there, Dot?" Beatrice was the only one who called me that. "Fine, B, missing home." "The house or Henry?" "Both," I sighed. "Here, I feel unwanted." "I told you not to sell the house." Beatrice could hear the rebuke in her voice. "You could have hired a caregiver for the first while." "I know, but Evelyn was so insistent, and I thought it would be nice to see the grandchildren every day. And instead, you became a free babysitter." "Don't say that, Bee. They're my grandchildren, and I love spending time with them." "Spending time, yes, but not being a servant in your own daughter's house." I didn't respond. Beatrice's words struck a nerve because deep down I knew she was right. By 6 o'clock we were home. I made dinner, lasagna, Noah's favorite, hoping to lighten the mood in the house a little. Evelyn returned at the beginning of 7, irritated and tired. "What took you so long? The kids are hungry." She tossed her bag on a chair and didn't even ask how the day had gone. "We just got back from class. Dinner is ready. We can sit down." I tried to speak calmly. Noah arrived a half hour later when we were already sitting at the table. He looked pleased, apparently a good day at work. Lasagna." He patted Oliver on the head and sat down next to Evelyn. "What's up, people?" "Abby was picked for the solo dance at the Christmas concert today." I looked at my granddaughter proudly. "Great, Pumpkin." Noah barely glanced at his daughter. "Evie, remember that client I was telling you about? He agreed to a full insurance package. That's a big commission, baby." Evelyn perked up. "Really? So we can go to Hawaii in the winter after all?" "Most likely. We need to figure out the budget." Noah looked at me. "By the way, Dorothy, did you pay the plumber?" "Yes, and for the internet, too." "Good." He went back to his food without thanking me. "Are you going to Hawaii?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "Yeah, in February. Just Noah and I. We need a vacation." Evelyn didn't even look embarrassed. "The kids will stay with you. You don't mind, do you?" "Of course not." I looked at Oliver and Abby, who were already anticipating time with Grandma. "And when you get back, maybe I'll go visit Beatrice for a couple days?" There was an awkward silence. Evelyn and Noah looked over at each other. "Mom, you know we're on a tight schedule. Who's going to pick up the kids from school and drive them to class?" Evelyn frowned. "Maybe in the summer, when they're on vacation." "But you wanted to go to Europe in the summer." I remembered their conversations. "Well, that's different. Noah and I work hard. We need to recover." Evelyn shrugged as if that explained everything. After dinner, I did the dishes while Evelyn helped the kids with their homework and Noah watched soccer. My hands dipped into the hot water and my mind spun with thoughts. When did all of this start? When did my daughter start treating me like a servant? I remembered how Evelyn had grown up a smart, ambitious girl who always knew what she wanted. Henry and I gave her a good education, supported her dreams, and the result is that she barely notices me unless she wants something. Finished with the dishes, I went to my room, saying goodnight to everyone. No one but the kids answered. Closing the door, I pulled an old photo album out of my dresser drawer. Henry, young and smiling, holding little Evelyn in his arms. I'm beside him, laughing, looking at them. We were happy then. What has changed? A quiet knock on the door interrupts my musings. Grandma, can I come in? Abby poked her head through the door. Sure, sunshine. I patted the bed beside me. Abby climbed in beside me and snuggled up. What are you looking at? Old pictures. Here, look. That's your mom when she was little. Looks just like me. Abby scrutinized the photo. And that's Grandpa Henry? Yes. Too bad you don't remember him much. I remember, Abby said gravely. He always gave Oliver and I coins for ice cream and told us it was a secret. I smiled through sudden tears. Henry adored his grandchildren. Grandma, are you happy living with us? Abby asked suddenly. I froze. What to say to an 8-year-old? Of course I am, sweetheart. I'm happy to be around you. But you're often sad. Abby looked at me with her serious eyes, so similar to Henry's. And Daddy told Mommy you're better off in a nursing home, but it's expensive. I felt everything inside clench. So this is how they talk about me when I'm not around. Don't worry about it, Abby. Grown-ups say stupid things sometimes. I kissed her forehead. It's time for bed. School tomorrow. After seeing my granddaughter off, I sat on the bed for another long time, staring into the void. A nursing home? Was Noah really thinking of kicking me out there too, after all I do for them? A recent conversation with a banker about my investments came to mind. The stock had gone up, and there was a sizable sum in the secret account. I could buy a small house, live on my own. But what about the kids? Who would pick them up from school, help them with their lessons, love them unconditionally? I went to bed with heavy thoughts. My life had reached a dead end, and I didn't see a way out. Not yet. But Abby's words made me think. Maybe it was time to think about myself. For the first time in a long time, I felt the resolve stirring inside. Henry wouldn't want me to live like this, and I shouldn't have to live like this. 2 weeks later, things only got worse. I noticed that Evelyn was getting irritable about everything. My mug was in the wrong place. The TV was on too loud. There was too much spice in the beef stew. Little things that used to go unnoticed were now giving her fits of irritation. That Tuesday morning, I woke up to the sound of rain drumming on the roof. A rare occurrence for Rancho Cucamonga, especially this time of year. The kids will be happy. They love rainy days. I reached for the phone to check the time. 6:30. Early, but I'd already gotten a good night's sleep. Quietly, so as not to wake anyone, I snuck into the kitchen and started making breakfast. Oliver and Abby had extra school on Tuesdays, so I had to get out 15 minutes early. The refrigerator was almost empty. I sighed, looking at the lone egg and leftover milk. I hadn't been able to go grocery shopping yesterday because of an emergency parent-teacher conference at school, which Evelyn and Noah hadn't gone to, of course. You don't have anything to do anyway, Mom, Evelyn told me without even asking if I had plans. I had to improvise with breakfast. I found some oatmeal to mix with the last of the apple and cinnamon. It would be fine for the kids, but Evelyn probably wouldn't be happy. However, when was the last time she was pleased with anything I make? What is it? Evelyn appeared in the kitchen, already dressed and wearing makeup, as I was putting the oatmeal on plates. Oatmeal with apples and cinnamon, I replied. There's hardly anything left in the fridge. She rolled her eyes. I told you to go to the store yesterday. I had a parent-teacher conference, remember? And what, you couldn't stop by the store afterward? She picked up her phone and started typing something. Noah can't stand oatmeal. Neither can I. Then I can make toast. Forget it, she cut her off. Noah and I will have breakfast on the way to work. Just make sure the kids are on time for school. I remained silent. Arguing with Evelyn had become useless. She always found a way to twist the situation around like it was my fault. Sometimes I didn't recognize her as my daughter. Oliver and Abby, as always, were happy to eat any breakfast. They munched on their oatmeal as they talked about their upcoming school science project. Grandma, we need to make a model of the solar system. Oliver waved his spoon around, picturing the orbits of the planets. Mrs. Parker said it has to be creative. We could use different fruits for the planets, Abby suggested. Watermelon would be the sun. Sounds interesting, I smiled at them. When do we have to turn in the project? Friday, they answered with glee. Another chore that Evelyn and Noah had forgotten to tell me about. And, of course, doing the project would have to be done by me. After the kids left for school, I went grocery shopping. The rain had picked up and my old Honda was sneezing and coughing at every stoplight. I should check the spark plugs, I thought. But then I remembered that Noah had taken my tools for some project of his and never returned them. The supermarket wasn't crowded because of the weather. I walked slowly between the aisles, checking my shopping list. The usual array: milk, eggs, bread, vegetables, fruit, dinner meat, and of course, my favorite cereal with chocolate for Noah and diet yogurt for Evelyn. At the checkout line, I pulled out the bank card linked to the account with my pension, $483.27, nearly $500 in groceries for a family I felt increasingly alien to. Mrs. Hampton? A pleasant male voice called out to me as I loaded the bags into the trunk. I turned around and saw Walter Trent, my former co-worker from the construction company. We hadn't seen each other since I retired 3 years ago. Walter, what a nice to meet you. I was genuinely pleased to see a familiar face. Are you living in Rancho Cucamonga now? I thought you and Henry had settled in San Bernardino. My face must have changed because Walter immediately added, "Oh, I'm sorry. I heard about Henry. My condolences." "Thank you," I nodded. "Yeah, I moved in with my daughter after he died. It was a difficult time." "I understand." Walter looked at me sympathetically. "You know, our firm is going through some accounting difficulties right now. The new chief accountant just can't cope. Everyone remembers you with a kind word." I couldn't help but smile. For 35 years, I had worked as an accountant in this construction company. I knew every detail of the firm's finances. "That's good to hear, Walter, but I've been retired for 3 years now." "Yes, but in case you get bored," he handed me a business card. "A few hours of counseling a week. The pay is decent. You'd really help us out." I took the card, not planning to call, but not wanting to offend an old colleague by saying no either. "I'll think about it, Walter. Thanks for the offer." On the way home, I reflected on the unexpected meeting. Back to work, even if only for a few hours a week. It sounded tempting. Not because of the money Henry's insurance and our investments were providing for me better than Evelyn and Noah thought, but the opportunity to feel needed, competent. That's what I missed so much at my daughter's house. At home, I was in for an unpleasant surprise. On the kitchen table, there was an envelope from the bank addressed to me. It had been opened, the contents removed. Noah was sitting next to me with a cup of coffee and a disgruntled look on his face. "Is there something you wanted to tell me, Noah?" I set the grocery bags on the table, already guessing what the conversation would be about. "What's this?" He waved a bank statement from an account with investments neither he nor Evelyn were supposed to know about. "This is my personal letter that you had no right to open." I felt anger rising inside. "It came to our home address," Noah retorted, "and I have a right to know what goes on in my house, especially when my mother-in-law, who's always complaining about the lack of money, turns out to own stock worth." He looked at the statement. "Almost $200,000. I took the papers from him. "That money has nothing to do with you, Noah. It's an inheritance from Henry." "And you kept it from us? From your family?" His face reddened with anger. "We've gone out of our way to provide a roof over your head, food, and you." "I pay for that food," I interrupted him, "and the internet, and the repairs to your house. My pension goes toward your bills. Oh, really? Who do you think spends money on your medication? On your health insurance? I pay for my own insurance, Noah, and for my meds too. He opened his mouth, then closed it, unable to find anything to object. Evelyn's going to be furious when she finds out you've been lying to us. I didn't cheat anyone. These are my personal savings, and I don't have to account for them. Oh, really? He stood up, towering over me. When you moved in with us, we thought we were helping a poor widow. Turns out you could have bought your own house and hired a caregiver. At that moment, I realized he was right. I really could have, and maybe I should have. But my love for my daughter and grandchildren overshadowed my common sense. I didn't move in with you for the money, Noah. It was because Evelyn asked me to, because she wanted to be near her grandchildren. Of course, he grimaced. And now that your secret's out, why don't you explain why we have to support a rich old woman who can't even make a decent breakfast? His words hit harder than he could have imagined. Keep? Noah, I pay for half the expenses in this house. I pick up the kids from school, drive them to classes, help with lessons, cook, clean, and it's all for free. You live in our house. He jabbed a finger in my direction. And if you're not happy with anything, the door is over there. With those words, he walked out, leaving me alone in the kitchen with an open bank statement in my hands. I sat down at the table, feeling my hands shaking. For years, I'd kept the true state of my finances from Evelyn. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I knew money changed people, and I guess I was right. I spent the entire day in a fog, preparing for the inevitable conversation with Evelyn. When it was time to pick up the kids from school, I was almost relieved to get out of the house. Oliver and Abby noticed right away that something was wrong. "Grandma, are you sad?" Abby asked, climbing into the back seat. "No, sweetie, just tired." I tried to smile. "How was your day at school?" As they went back and forth about their lessons, I thought about what would happen next. Leaving my daughter's house? But where to? Get an apartment nearby so I could see my grandchildren? But Evelyn and Noah might forbid me from seeing them. That thought made my heart sink. Evelyn was waiting for us at home. She was standing in the kitchen, leaning against the table, with the same envelope in her hands that Noah had seen in the morning. "Children, go to your room," she commanded as soon as we entered. "I need to talk to Grandma." Oliver and Abby reluctantly wove their way upstairs, casting worried glances at me. "You've been lying to us this whole time," Evelyn began once the kids were out of sight. "You had money, lots of money, and you pretended to be a poor widow who needed help." "I never pretended, Evelyn." I tried to speak calmly. "You were the one who insisted I move in with you after my father died." "Because we thought you needed help." She raised her voice. "And all this time, you could have been living on your own. Instead, you became a burden to us, made us redesign our whole lives for you." A burden? I felt a lump come up to my throat. I pick up the kids from school, cook, clean, do laundry, help them with their classes. I pay half the bills in this house out of my pension. How is that called a burden? "Don't get ahead of yourself," Evelyn retorted. "You know what I mean. You're the reason Noah and I can't live a normal life, always having to think about what Mom will say, what Mom will think. And now it turns out you have tons of money you've been hiding from us." I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. "Evelyn, that money is your father's inheritance. He always made sure I was provided for after he died. I didn't hide them intentionally. I just didn't feel it necessary to discuss my finances." "Of course," she splashed her hands. "And when Noah and I were barely making ends meet, paying for repairs on the house, for the kids' school, you just sat back and watched with tons of money in your account. I was paying bills, Evelyn, lots of bills, and I never said no when you asked for help." "What kind of help?" Crumbs. And you could have. She paused, but I realized where she was going with this. Give you everything? Is that what you meant to say? Evelyn didn't answer, but her look spoke for itself. It was exactly what she expected, that I would give them all the money Henry had left me. It's your father's money, Evelyn. He wanted me to be provided for in my old age, and some of that money will go to you and the children in the future. In the future, she puckered her lips. In the meantime, we have to scrape by, barely making ends meet while you sit on your pile of money. At that moment, I realized my daughter had changed beyond recognition. Or maybe she had always been this way, and I just didn't want to see it. You know what, Evelyn? I straightened up, feeling the determination growing inside. I think we all need some time to think this through. I'll look for an apartment nearby. The expression on her face changed. What? You want to leave? Yes, obviously, my presence here is creating too much tension. What about the kids? Who's going to pick them up from school? Help them with their lessons? That was it. It wasn't my company she cared about, but a free babysitter, housekeeper, and cook all in one. You and Noah can handle it. After all, you're their parents. Mom, don't be dramatic. Evelyn suddenly changed her tone to conciliatory. Of course we were shocked to hear about your money, but that doesn't mean you have to leave. We're family. Family, I echoed. Do you know what a family is, Evelyn? It's people who take care of each other, respect each other, don't use each other. Using? What are you talking about? She pretended to be surprised, but I could see the falseness in her eyes. You know perfectly well. Ever since I moved here, I've been a free housekeeper. You and Noah dictate what I do, where I go, how I live. You don't ask me what I want, what my plans are. You just using me. That's not fair, Evelyn shook her head. We offered you a home when you were alone. We care about you. You offered me a roof over my head, Evelyn, not a home and not care. Noah walked into the kitchen, interrupting our conversation. Oh, family council? I'm just in time. Mom wants to move out, Evelyn informed him. Noah looked at me with a look of surprise that was quickly replaced by a calculating expression. Really? And where are you going, Dorothy? I don't know yet. I'm going to look for an apartment nearby. Nearby, he grinned. What about the kids? Who's going to pick them up from school, take them to classes? Same question as Evelyn's. Not, we'll miss you, or we'll miss you. Just, who will fulfill your responsibilities? You'll do fine, I repeated. And if we can't handle it? Noah stepped closer, and there was a threatening note in his voice. You do realize that if you leave, the relationship will change. We won't be able to let you see the kids as often as we do now. That was it. The threat I feared most. They're using the grandchildren as leverage. You can't stop me from seeing my own grandchildren, Noah. No? Well, you check. He smirked. We're their parents. We decide who they socialize with. I looked at my daughter, expecting her to stand up for me, to tell me it was too much. But Evelyn was silent, and her silence spoke louder than any words. I get it, I said quietly. So those are the rules of the game. I walked out of the kitchen, feeling everything inside boiling with anger and resentment. In my small room, I sat on my bed and pulled out my phone. It was time to act. The first thing I did was call Beatrice. She always said I was too soft on Evelyn and Noah. Now I realized she was right. "Bea, it's me," I said when she picked up the phone. "Remember you said your friend had a spare apartment for rent?" Dot? What's wrong? Beatrice immediately sensed something was wrong. It's a long story, but I need to move out of here as soon as possible. After talking to Beatrice, I pulled out Walter Trent's business card. It was time to get back on track, even if only partially. Not for the money, I had plenty of it. but to feel needed again, competent, a woman with her own life and goals, not just a grandmother and a housekeeper. As I dialed the number, there was a knock at the door. "Grandma, can I see you?" It was Abby. "Sure, sunshine." I put the phone away and opened the door. Abby slipped into the room, followed by Oliver. They both looked worried. "Did you and Mom and Dad fight?" Oliver asked. "We heard." "Not fighting, honey, just discussing adult issues." "Do you really want to leave?" Abby's eyes filled with tears. I hugged them both. "I will never leave you, my good ones. Even if I live in another house, I'll always be there for you." "Promise?" Oliver looked at me with his serious eyes, so similar to Henry's. "I promise." When the kids left, I went back to the phone. A call to Walter, then to the realtor Beatrice had recommended. A plan began to form in my head. I won't let Evelyn and Noah continue to use me. I won't let them take my grandchildren away from me. I will not let them rob me of my dignity. Henry always said, "Dot, you're stronger than you think." It was time to prove him right. November days in Rancho Cucamonga were surprisingly cold. Every morning I would wake up in my small room and see frost covering the windows, a rare sight in Southern California. 3 weeks had passed since that unpleasant conversation, and the atmosphere in the house had become unbearable. Evelyn and Noah practically stopped talking to me unless they needed something. "Pick up the kids, make dinner, wash my shirts," jerky commands thrown in passing. No thanks, no interest in how I was feeling or what I was doing. And I was doing a lot of things, though they didn't know it. Twice a week I traveled to my old company's office, where I consulted on accounting issues. Walter was thrilled to have me back, even if only part-time. "You're like a breath of fresh air, Dorothy," he told me after the first week. "Without you, everything fell apart." The realtor Beatrice had recommended to me had found a great apartment 10 minutes from Evelyn and Noah's house. I'd already signed the lease and was slowly moving things in while no one was home. Nothing of value, just personal trivia, photos, books, things that mattered to me, but whose absence Evelyn and Noah wouldn't notice. The only ray of light these days were Oliver and Abby. They felt the tension in the house and tried to spend as much time with me as possible. I helped them with their homework, played board games, and told them stories about their grandfather. The thought of being separated from them tore at my heart, but I knew I couldn't stay in that toxic house a day longer than necessary. That cold Saturday morning, I went down to the kitchen and found Noah there, who usually slept in until noon on weekends. He was sitting at the table with some papers spread out in front of him, looking unusually content. "Good morning, Noah," I said, heading for the coffee maker. "Ah, Dorothy." He looked up with a look as if he'd only just noticed me. "It's good of you to come down. We need to talk." Something in his tone made me wary. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down across from him. "I've been going over our household expenses," he began, tapping his fingers on the papers. "And you know what I discovered? Your presence in our house is costing us a tidy sum." "I'm sorry, what?" I nearly choked on my coffee. "I'm paying for my expenses, Noah, and not just my own." "Yes, yes, yes, of course." He waved it away like an annoying fly. "But there are hidden costs, too. Electricity, water, wear and tear on furniture. Plus, your room could generate income for us if we rented it out." I couldn't believe my ears. "You want me to pay you rent for a tiny room that doesn't even have its own bathroom?" "Not necessarily rent," he smiled, but his eyes remained cold. "There is another option." "And what's that?" "Your stocks. If you sold them and invested the money in our house, that would be fair. After all, we provide you with housing, food, take care of you." That was it. Now their plan was clear. They wanted my money, all my money. First, they tried to pressure my love for my grandchildren. Now they were threatening eviction. Noah, this money is my financial security. I'm not going to spend it on fixing up your house or anything else. He frowned. So you'd rather sit on your wealth while your daughter can barely make ends meet? Evelyn and you earn enough. You're not poor. You just want to live beyond your means. Evelyn walked into the kitchen, already fully dressed and wearing makeup despite the early hour. What are you two talking about? Your mother refuses to help us financially, even though she lives on our own. Noah threw me an accusing look. Evelyn crossed her arms over her chest. Really, Mom? After everything we've done for you? And what exactly have you done for me, Evelyn? I felt anger rising inside. Allocated a tiny room, forced to fulfill the role of free nanny and housekeeper, constantly insinuating that I'm a burden. Is that what you call caring? We sheltered you when you were alone. Evelyn raised her voice. And you're not even grateful. Grateful? I stood up, unable to hold back any longer. For what? For treating me like a servant? For blackmailing me with grandchildren? For trying to embezzle the money your father left me? No one is embezzling anything, Noah interjected. We're just offering a fair exchange. You live in our house. You invest in our house. A fair exchange? I laughed bitterly. You want me to give you $200,000 for the right to live in a pantry and work for you for free? It's not a pantry, it's a... Evelyn began, but I interrupted her. You know what? I'm out of here, effective today, and you don't have to worry about my money. I'm keeping it with me. Evelyn's face changed, a look of panic on it. What? You can't just pick up and leave? What about the children? Who's going to pick them up from school, help them with their lessons? You're their parents. You deal with it. But we have work. You know our schedule. Evelyn grabbed my arm. Mom, don't be dramatic. No one is kicking you out. No, I released my hand. And I think that's what's happening. Either I give you all my money or I'm not welcome here. Well, I choose the second option. Noah stepped between us. If you leave, forget about the grandchildren. We won't let you see them. You have no right to forbid your grandmother from seeing her grandchildren, came Oliver's voice. We all turned around and saw the kids standing in the kitchen doorway. They had heard the whole thing. Oliver, Abby, go to your room, Evelyn said sternly. This is adult conversation. No. Abby, usually so quiet, suddenly raised her voice. You're being mean to Grandma. We see everything. To your room, now, Noah barked, and the children, startled by his tone, ran upstairs. I felt tears come to my eyes. Even the children had seen how I was being treated, and now they were witnessing this horrible scene. This is what you've done, Evelyn hissed. Turned the children against us. I didn't do anything, I replied quietly. Children aren't blind, Evelyn. They see and understand everything. Get out, Noah said suddenly. Pack your things and get out of our house. Tonight. Noah, Evelyn exclaimed, but not because she disagreed, but because his words sounded too harsh. No, Evie, I mean it. He kept his eyes on me. If your mother thinks we're such horrible people, well, let her go and live on her own. We'll see how she does without our help. I'm sure pretty soon she'll come crawling back begging us to take her in. I straightened, feeling the determination growing inside. You won't wait. 3 hours later, I drove out of their house in my old Honda Accord, loading all my belongings into the trunk and back seat. It wasn't much. Clothes, a few books, photo albums, personal belongings. Most of it I had already moved into the new apartment in the past weeks. The hardest part was saying goodbye to Oliver and Abby. They were crying, hugging me, not wanting to let go. I'll come visit you, I promise, I said, wiping away their tears. And you can come visit me whenever you want. Really? Oliver looked at me hopefully. Dad said we wouldn't see each other again. Your dad's wrong. I hugged him tightly. No one can forbid a grandmother from loving her grandchildren. Evelyn stood off to the side, arms crossed over her chest, watching the parting scene. There was a certainty in her eyes. I can't do this alone. I'll be back. But I knew I wouldn't. Never. My new apartment was small but cozy. One bedroom, a living room, a kitchen. Everything you need for a lonely elderly woman. And most importantly, it was my space where no one could boss me around or make me feel guilty for existing. Over the next week, I settled into my new place and worked on a plan. Through a lawyer, I arranged the paperwork that guaranteed me the right to see my grandchildren. Evelyn and Noah couldn't legally forbid me unless they could prove in court that I was a danger to the children, which was, of course, impossible. I also decided it was time to do something for myself, something I had dreamed about for years, but had always put off for later. My old Honda had served me faithfully for many years, but now that I was starting a new life, it was time for a new car. That Thursday, I went to a Mercedes car dealership in a neighboring town. I wasn't going to buy the most expensive model, but I wanted something comfortable and reliable, something that would symbolize my new independence. The young consultant who introduced himself as Jeremy didn't take me seriously at first, just another old lady who came to look at expensive cars. That's probably what he thought. But when I confidently named the model I was interested in and said I was willing to pay cash, his attitude changed. Mercedes GL Coupe? Excellent choice, ma'am. Jeremy walked me over to the sleek silver car. This is one of our best crossovers. All-wheel drive, 3-liter engine, all the latest safety systems. I walked around the car, admiring its smooth lines. Can I sit inside? Sure, please. He opened the driver's door. The seat was incredibly comfortable, and the interior smelled like new leather. The dashboard resembled the cockpit of a spaceship, solid screens and touchpads. Impressive, I smiled. How much does it cost? This configuration is $280,000, including all options. Jeremy watched my reaction carefully. I didn't change in my face. Okay, I'll take it. Excuse me? He didn't seem to believe his ears. I said I'm taking her. Today's the day. Get the paperwork done. While Jeremy prepared the paperwork in some shock, I looked around at the other models in the showroom. That's when I heard the familiar voices. It's still too expensive, Noah. We can't afford it. Evelyn and Noah were standing at the entrance of the showroom, looking at the cars on display. I froze in place, not wanting to face them, but it was too late. Evelyn spotted me and froze with her mouth open. Mom? She hesitantly took a step forward. What are you doing here? I straightened up. Same thing you're doing, I guess. Watching cars. Noah stepped closer, disbelief red on his face. You're buying a car? Here? Already bought one. I nodded toward a silver Mercedes. That GLE coupe over there. Their faces were worth capturing that moment in a photo. Shock, disbelief, and then realization. But it's standing, Evelyn began. $280,000. I finished for her. Yes, that's quite a bit, but I can afford it. Noah was the first to come to his senses. Dorothy, this is crazy. Why do you need such an expensive car? You could buy something simpler and help us fix up the house. Or what, Noah? I interrupted him. Give you the money? After you kicked me out of the house? After you threatened to take away my contact with my grandchildren? Evelyn interjected. Mom, we've been on edge. You know what Noah's moods are like. That's not what he meant. No, that's exactly what he meant. I shook my head. You've both made it clear that I'm just a source of free favors and potential money to you. Well, now you're going to have to do without both. Mrs. Hampton. Jeremy returned with the paperwork. It's all ready to go. Just need your signature and the car is yours. Thank you, Jeremy. I headed toward his desk, but Evelyn grabbed my arm. Mom, wait, let's talk about this. We need you. The kids miss you. There was panic in her eyes. Not love, not remorse, panic. Who would pick up the kids from school now? Who would make dinners and do their laundry? Who will save them money for a nanny and a housekeeper? I will see the kids, I said firmly. My attorney has already prepared documents that guarantee me that right, and you and I have nothing to talk about. Lawyer? Noah went pale. You hired a lawyer against us? To protect my rights, Noah. Not against you, but for myself. I walked over to Jeremy's desk and signed the papers. Noah and Evelyn stood to the side, watching me with a mixture of shock and anger on their faces. Congratulations on your purchase, Mrs. Hampton. Jeremy handed me the keys to my new car. It's fully fueled and ready for the road. Thank you, Jeremy. I took the keys and turned to my daughter and son-in-law. Goodbye. I hope you find someone willing to work for you for free and put up with your neglect. I will no longer be that person. Mom! Evelyn rushed after me as I headed for the exit. You can't just leave. We're family. I stopped and looked her in the eye. No, Evelyn. We stopped being family the moment you and Noah started seeing me as nothing more than a free servant and potential source of money. That's not what a real family does. We can fix this. She sounded desperate. Come home and we'll talk it over. Home? I grinned bitterly. I have my own home now, Evelyn, and no one there tells me I'm a burden. Noah joined us, his face contorted with anger. You're going to regret this, Dorothy. When your money runs out, when you realize you can't live alone at your age, don't come crying to us. Don't worry, Noah. I looked at him calmly. I'd rather live in a nursing home than come back to you. Evelyn odd. Did you hear our conversation? Abby heard and told me. Children notice a lot of things, Evelyn, and they see how you feel about me. With those words, I walked out of the car dealership and got into my new Mercedes. The leather seat squeaked pleasantly under my weight, and when I turned the key, the powerful engine rumbled like a contented cat. Through the windshield, I could see Evelyn and Noah standing at the entrance to the cabin, watching me. Their faces expressed a mixture of anger, disbelief, and, perhaps for the first time, fear. Fear that they had lost not only a free nanny and housekeeper, but also access to my money that they had counted on so much. I pulled out of the parking lot, feeling strangely relieved. There was an unknown ahead, but it was my unknown, my life, and I intended to live it my way, without toxic relationships or manipulation. On the way home, to my new home, I called Beatrice. Bea, it's me. You won't believe what just happened. The first month of living on my own flew by. I quickly settled into my new apartment, arranging furniture, hanging pictures, sleeping on my own bed, in my own bedroom, where no one could enter without knocking with another errand. It was an inexpressible feeling of freedom. My apartment was in a quiet apartment complex for people over 55. It wasn't a nursing home, as Noah had threatened to send me to, but a regular apartment complex with a swimming pool, a small gym, and a common living room where the residents gathered in the evenings to play cards or watch a movie. The first week I got to know my neighbors. On my right was Martha Kingsley, a former English teacher, now retired, who loved detectives and knitting. To my left was the Greenwood couple, Albert and Eleanor, both former doctors, avid travelers, always ready to share stories of their adventures. The morning didn't start with cooking breakfast for the family, but with a cup of coffee on the small balcony overlooking the complex's picturesque courtyard. I watched the sun slowly rise over the horizon, listened to the birds singing, and felt peaceful for the first time in a long time. After my morning ritual, I usually went to the office of the construction company, where I worked as a consultant 3 days a week. Walter was thrilled to have me back and introduced me to the new staff as an accounting legend. The young employees were a little wary of me at first. What could an older woman know about modern accounting methods? But when I took 15 minutes to find an error in a quarterly report that they had been looking for a week, their attitude changed. "Mrs. Hampton, you're just magic," Laurel, a young girl who had recently graduated from college, told me. "How do you find mistakes so quickly?" "Experience, dear," I smiled. 35 years of working with numbers teaches you to see patterns where others see only chaos. The job brought not only extra income, which frankly I didn't particularly need, but also a sense of self-worth. I was Dorothy Hampton again, an experienced accountant, not just Grandma Dorothy, who had to run to cook, clean, or pick up the kids from school at the drop of a hat. In the evenings, driving home in my new Mercedes, which, I must admit, gave me an inordinate amount of pleasure, I often stopped at the supermarket. Now I bought only what I liked, not caring about Noah's preferences or Evelyn's dietary quirks. Sometimes it was ready meals from the cookout. After decades of cooking for my family, I deserved a break from the stove. On weekends, I often went out with Beatrice. We'd go to the movies, to small cafes, or just walk in the park, enjoying each other's company. "You've changed, Dot," Beatrice said to me during one of these walks. "You look younger." "I feel like I've dropped a heavy backpack from my shoulders," I admitted. I didn't think it was still possible to start a new life at my age. "Ha!" Beatrice snorted. "67 is the new 47. You've got a lot of good years ahead of you." She was right. I felt more energetic and healthier than I had in all the years I'd spent at Evelyn and Noah's house, where the constant stress and feelings of being unwanted had undermined my health. The only thing that marred my new life was the separation from my grandchildren. Despite a legal agreement that guaranteed me the right to see them, Evelyn and Noah prevented me from seeing them. The children had sudden plans. They got sick on the exact day I was supposed to pick them up, and other unforeseen circumstances arose. I missed Oliver and Abby unbearably. Their pictures were in every room of my new apartment, and in the guest bedroom I had prepared 2 beds, closets full of toys and books for them. Everything was ready for their arrival, but they never got to see it. One December day when I got home from work, my phone rang. Evelyn's name popped up on the screen. I frowned. She rarely called, preferring to communicate via short text messages, if at all. "Yes, Evelyn?" I tried to keep my voice sounding neutral. "Mom." Her voice sounded strained. "We need to talk. It's urgent." "What's wrong? Are the kids okay?" Yeah, they're fine." She was quiet. "It's a financial matter. Can we meet? Tonight, if possible." I sighed. So, here we go. Henry always said money changes people, and he was right. Evelyn wasn't interested in how I was living, if I was happy, if I was healthy. All she wanted was my money. "Okay," I said, "in an hour at Mike's Cafe on Central. Can't we meet somewhere more private place?" "No, Evelyn, in a public place or no way." She was quiet for a moment, then reluctantly agreed. Mike's Cafe was a small, family-run establishment that was always quiet and cozy. I'd chosen it on purpose first. It wasn't far from my house. And second, there were always enough people there that Evelyn and Noah, I had no doubt he was coming too, couldn't make a scene. I arrived first, ordered a cup of tea, and sat down at a table by the window. Exactly 15 minutes later, the door to the cafe opened and Evelyn and Noah walked in. They looked tense and tired. Evelyn looked around nervously, as if she was afraid of meeting someone she knew, and Noah looked down at his feet with a frown. "Hello, Mom." Evelyn smiled strainedly and sat down across from me. Noah silently took the seat next to her. "Evelyn, Noah." I nodded to them. "Tea? Coffee?" "No, thanks." Evelyn shook her head. We don't have much time. Get to the point then. I sipped from my cup, watching them over the rim. Evelyn glanced at Noah, as if expecting him to start a conversation, but he stubbornly looked away. Finally, she sighed and spoke. Mom, we've had some financial difficulties. Really? I kept a neutral expression on my face. Yes, the house, well, you know the roof's been in need of repair for a long time, and the heating system too, and now the pipes have started leaking too. We got an estimate from the contractor, $25,000 for the most necessary repairs. E? And we don't have that kind of money. She lowered her eyes. The bank turned us down for a loan. We already have a mortgage, 2 car loans. 3, Noah interjected suddenly. 3 car loans. Evelyn threw him an annoyed look. Yes, 3. Noah bought a new pickup truck. I suppressed a smile. So that was it. Noah spent the money on a new toy, and now they're short on home repairs. And how can I help? I asked, even though the answer was obvious. We were thinking, maybe you could lend us that amount of money? We'll pay it back, of course, as soon as we can. Evelyn tried to sound confident, but I could hear a note of desperation in her voice. Borrow? I raised an eyebrow. As I recall, the last time we met, Noah threatened to deprive me of contact with my grandchildren, and you stood by and didn't say a word against it. It was a misunderstanding, Evelyn said quickly. We were on edge. You know what Noah's temper is like. Hey, Noah exclaimed indignantly, but she ignored him. Mom, we're sorry about what happened. We really are. We were wrong. I looked at them carefully. There was no genuine remorse in Evelyn's eyes, just calculation and despair. Noah, on the other hand, didn't look guilty at all, rather annoyed at the necessity of this conversation. 25,000 is not an insignificant sum, I remarked, especially considering you won't let me see my grandchildren despite the legal agreement. We're not preventing it, Evelyn exclaimed. It's just that the kids have very busy schedules, school, sports, extra classes, which miraculously coincide with the days I have to pick them up. I shook my head. Don't lie to me, Evelyn. I've only seen the kids 3 times in the last month, and that was for a couple hours, even though the agreement says I have to spend weekends with them every 2 weeks. Evelyn looked helplessly at Noah. The latter finally decided to intervene in the conversation. Listen, Dorothy, he leaned forward. We can rearrange the visitation schedule. The kids miss you. They'd love to spend more time with you. Do they miss you, or do you need a free babysitter? I looked him straight in the eye. Who cares? He snapped back. You'll get what you want, time with the kids. We get what we need, money for renovations and some free time. Everybody wins. I set the cup aside and folded my hands on the table. You know what the saddest part is? You really don't realize what you're doing wrong. You didn't come here because you miss me or regret your behavior. You came here because you want my money, and you're willing to sell me time with my own grandchildren in exchange for $25,000. That's not true, Evelyn protested, but her voice sounded unconvinced. That's exactly right. I shook my head. You haven't changed. Noah slammed his fist on the table, making the cups bounce. Stop playing the victim, Dorothy. You live in your cozy apartment, drive your new Mercedes, work for pleasure, not out of necessity. And we're trying to make ends meet by raising your grandchildren, which you're using as a bargaining chip. I didn't raise my voice, but my words sounded like a slap. Evelyn grabbed Noah's arm, stopping him before he said anything else. Mom, please, we really need your help. If the roof isn't repaired before the rainy season, we're going to have a flood. The kids could get sick from the damp and mold. She was playing on my love for my grandchildren, and we both knew it. But there was some truth in what she said. The dilapidated roof could indeed lead to serious health problems for everyone in the house, including Oliver and Abby. Okay, I finally said. I'll give you the money for the repairs, but with conditions. Evelyn and Noah's faces brightened, but I held up my hand, stopping their premature joy. First of all, I won't give you cash. I'll directly pay the contractor's bills after my own expert checks the estimate. Second, you will strictly adhere to the visitation schedule set forth in our agreement. No sudden plans, no forgot, or couldn't make it. And third, this is the last time I will help you financially. If you come for money again, the answer will be no. Noah looked like he wanted to object, but Evelyn quickly agreed, Of course, Mom. That's more than fair. Thank you. They left shortly after that, not even waiting for me to finish my tea. As soon as the door closed behind them, I called my lawyer and asked them to prepare a document cementing our new arrangements. I didn't trust them, and I wasn't about to take any chances. That night, lying in my comfortable bed in my quiet apartment, I thought about how my life had changed over the past few months. Henry would be pleased to see me like this, independent, determined, not letting others run my life. My financial situation with him had always been stable, but it had gotten even better since his death. The insurance company paid me $400,000, a substantial sum, most of which I invested in safe stocks on the advice of our longtime financial advisor. Over the years, those investments have grown to provide me with a comfortable old age. Henry had also left me a small stake in a technology company that he had bought back in the 90s for pennies on the dollar. No one, including me, expected them to ever be worth more than the paper they were printed on. But the company took off unexpectedly, and now those shares were a significant part of my fortune. Evelyn and Noah didn't know all the details, but they saw the result: a new car, an apartment in a nice complex, my ability to not work if I didn't want to. And it drove them crazy, especially Noah, who was always chasing the outward signs of wealth, buying things he couldn't afford, going into debt to maintain a certain lifestyle. The following weeks passed in a flurry of activity. I hired an expert to check the estimates for repairs to the roof and heating system at Evelyn and Noah's house. As I suspected, they had grossly overestimated the amount needed. The actual cost of the repairs was about $17,000, not $25,000 as they claimed. I paid the bills directly to the contractors, insisting that the work be done well and on time. Evelyn and Noah were unhappy about not getting paid, but they had no choice. At least they started keeping their visitation schedule, and I was finally able to spend quality time with my grandchildren. Every other Saturday, Oliver and Abby stayed overnight at my house, and those days were the happiest of my new life. Grandma, your apartment is so cool, Oliver marveled, exploring every corner. And those bag chairs in our room are awesome. Abby liked the balcony best. You can see the stars from here, she said, snuggling up to me in the evenings as we sat in the chairs, wrapped in plaids, and watched the night sky. We cooked together, played board games, watched movies. I helped them with their homework, especially Oliver, who was having trouble with math. Those hours spent together were priceless, and I was grateful that I was able to assert my right to them. One day, when I brought the kids home after a weekend away, Evelyn greeted me with an unexpected offer. Mom, Noah and I were thinking, maybe you could pick the kids up from school 2 or 3 times a week. My boss at the beauty parlor cut my hours, and it's hard for us to combine work and childcare. What about a babysitter? I asked. I mean, you hired a woman to pick them up when I can't. Yes, but it's expensive. Evelyn lowered her eyes. $15 an hour, and she often stays longer than necessary. I looked at my daughter carefully. It was the same again. They only saw me as a free favor, a way to save money. I'll think about it, I said. But if I agree, It will be on my terms. I bring the kids to my place, not sit with them in your house, and you pick them up yourself in the evening rather than expecting me to drive them around. Evelyn nodded hastily. Of course, Mom. Whatever you say. I could see the relief on her face. You bet. She had just saved hundreds of dollars a month on babysitting services. Later, back at home, I pondered her offer. On the one hand, it would give me more time with my grandchildren, which I truly wanted. On the other hand, it would put me back in the position of a free babysitter, dependent on Evelyn and Noah's schedules and moods. In the end, I decided to agree, but under strict conditions, which I put in writing and gave to Evelyn the next time I saw her. She signed the paper without hesitation, too excited about the prospect of saving money to read the details. And the details were important. I picked Oliver and Abby up from school twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, brought them to my place, helped them with their lessons, fed them, and kept them entertained until Evelyn came to pick them up. But if she was more than 15 minutes late without a good reason or tried to reschedule at the last minute, I had the right to cancel the next appointment. This disciplined Evelyn, and for the first few weeks our new system worked flawlessly. But I knew my daughter. Sooner or later she would start testing boundaries, testing how far she could go. And I was ready for it. My new life was finding balance, a job that was satisfying, a home that was truly mine, time with my grandchildren that I valued more than anything else in the world, and freedom, financial and personal, that I would never trade for dependence on anyone, not even my own daughter. Henry often told me, Dot, money isn't just paper and coins. It's an opportunity to choose your own destiny. I now realized how right he was. My savings and investments had given me something that couldn't be bought, independence and self-respect, and I wasn't about to give that up. February in Rancho Cucamonga was surprisingly rainy. Gray clouds seemed to block out the sun forever, and the constant drizzle turned the streets into muddy rivers. I sat at the window of my apartment, watching the drops crash against the glass, and thought about my grandchildren. Today was Oliver's birthday. He was turning 9. Evelyn had invited me to the party they were having at home. I accepted, even though I knew it wouldn't be easy. It had been almost 2 months since I'd paid for the repairs to their house. Our agreement was still in place. I picked Oliver and Abby up from school twice a week, and every weekend they stayed overnight. It worked, but not without problems. Evelyn and Noah, despite my best efforts to set clear boundaries, were constantly trying to get more from me, more time, more favors, more money. The petty requests became more frequent and more insistent. Mom, can you pick up the kids on Wednesday? I have an important client. Dorothy, we need to replace the water heater right away. Can you lend us a couple thousand before payday? Mom, Oliver needs a new bike for bike club. It's very important for his socialization. Every time I was faced with a difficult choice, to refuse meant possibly hurting my grandchildren or giving Evelyn and Noah an excuse to limit my time with the kids. Accepting it meant letting them manipulate me again. I learned to compromise. Sometimes I agreed to extra days with the children, but insisted that Evelyn bring them to me and pick them up at the agreed-upon time. Sometimes bought things directly for the grandchildren, but refused to give money to their parents. Okay, I'll buy a bicycle, but it will be stored at my place and Oliver can ride it when he comes to see me or when I pick him up. Evelyn and Noah were unhappy with these decisions, but had to put up with them. My money was too important to them to cut off contact completely. I looked at the gift I had prepared for Oliver, a new telescope. The boy had been interested in astronomy ever since we'd started stargazing together on my balcony. The telescope was expensive, almost $800, and I knew Evelyn and Noah wouldn't be happy. Not because I'd spent a lot on their son, but because they wouldn't be able to control the gift. I would keep the telescope, and Oliver would only be able to use it when he came to see me. The ringing of the phone interrupted my musings. It was Abby. Grandma? Her voice sounded quiet, almost a whisper. Are you coming over soon? Yes, sunshine. In an hour, just like we agreed. Good. She was quiet. Grandma, Mom, and Dad were fighting about money again. I sighed. Evelyn and Noah often fought over financial issues, and unfortunately, the kids had to hear it. Don't worry, Abby. Adults argue sometimes. It's normal. They were talking about you. Her voice got even quieter. Daddy said you should be made to help us more, that you're selfish for not sharing money with your family. My heart squeezed. This is what kids hear about their grandmother. Abby, listen to me. Whatever you hear, know this. I love you and Oliver more than anything in the world, and I will always be there for you when you need me. I know, Grandma. She was quiet. Oliver says that when he grows up, he's going to live with you instead of Mom and Dad. I want to, too. I didn't know what to say back. On the one hand, I was pleased that the kids loved me so much. On the other, they didn't have to feel the rift in the family, having to choose between their parents and their grandmother. Honey, that's years away. For now, we should all try to get along with each other, okay? Especially today, on Oliver's birthday. Okay. Abby's voice sounded less than convinced. Bye, Grandma. See you soon. I hung up the phone and felt the anxiety growing inside. The situation was getting more and more tense. The kids were noticing the conflict between me and their parents, and it was affecting them negatively. But what could I do? Let Evelyn and Noah use me as an ATM machine? Give them all my savings just so they would finally leave me alone? No, that wasn't a solution. I was trying to be fair, helping them with the really important things, like fixing the roof. But if I started giving them money for whatever they wanted, it would never end. Their appetites would only grow, and their respect for me would not increase. An hour later, I parked my Mercedes outside their house. The newly repaired roof looked as good as new, and I felt some satisfaction at the thought that my money had gone to something really necessary. At least the kids were now living in a safe, dry home. Noah met me at the front door. He gave a strained smile, but his eyes remained cold. Dorothy, good to see you, he said without much enthusiasm. Come on in. Everyone's already gathered. The living room was noisy. About 10 children were running around between the balloons and garlands, playing some sort of noisy game. Oliver, seeing me, rushed toward me. Grandma! He hugged me with such force that I almost fell over. You came? Of course I came. How could I have missed your birthday? I kissed the top of his head. Happy birthday, my good one. Evelyn appeared from the kitchen with a cake in her hands. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes. Mom, it's good you came. She placed the cake on the table. Children, everyone at the table, let's blow out the candles. Oliver pulled my hand. Grandma, sit next to me. I noticed Evelyn and Noah exchange glances, but said nothing. The festivities continued as usual, blowing out candles, cutting the cake, handing out gifts. When it was my turn, I handed Oliver a large box. What's this? His eyes shone with curiosity. Open it and you'll find out. I smiled. He ripped open the package and froze when he saw the box containing a telescope. A telescope? A real one? The very real one, professional. Wow! He hugged me again. Thank you, Grandma. This is the best gift ever. I noticed how Evelyn and Noah's faces changed. They tried to smile, but I could read the irritation in their eyes. My gift eclipsed anything they could buy their son. There's just one condition, I told Oliver. The telescope will be stored at my house because it needs special conditions, but you'll be able to use it when you come to see me. Of course. He was so happy he was willing to agree to any conditions. We'll be able to watch the stars from your balcony. And can I come to your place tonight? Please. Before I could answer, Evelyn intervened. Oliver, you can't tonight. You have company, and then it'll be late. But Mom. No buts. Her voice became harsher. Grandma's picking you and Abby up this weekend as usual. I could see the disappointment on Oliver's face, but I didn't argue. Today was his day, and I didn't want to mar it with conflict. When the guests had dispersed and the kids had gone to play in Oliver's room, Evelyn and Noah asked me to stick around to talk. We were sitting in the kitchen and the atmosphere was tense. Mom, we need to talk about summer vacation, Evelyn began. Noah and I are planning to go on vacation for 2 weeks in July. To France. I raised an eyebrow. To France? That's an expensive vacation. Noah will have a bonus at work, Evelyn said quickly. And we've been dreaming of this trip for a long time. It's our first real vacation in years. I'm happy for you, I said, though an inner voice told me something wasn't right here. And the kids? That's the thing. Noah stepped into the conversation. We can't take them with us. It's too expensive, and then we want some time just for the two of us. I understand, I nodded. You want them to stay with me for these 2 weeks? Yes, Evelyn agreed too hastily. They'll love it. You know how much they love to visit you. I stared at them both, trying to figure out what was really going on. A sudden trip to France when they barely had enough money to fix up the house? Noah's award, which was the first I'd ever heard of? Something wasn't adding up here. Of course I'd love to spend 2 weeks with my grandchildren, I said, but I need to know the exact dates in advance so I can adjust my work hours. We haven't bought the tickets yet. Noah mewed a little. That depends on the award, but it'll probably be the first half of July. Okay, let me know when you decide. I stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. It's getting late. I should get home. Wait, Mom. Evelyn put her hand on my shoulder. There's something else. I sat back down, feeling like I was about to hear the real reason for their vacation. The thing is, she was quiet for a moment, choosing her words. We need your help with this trip. My help? Yes, financially, Noah interjected, clearly losing patience. Look, Dorothy, we're not asking you to pay for the whole trip, just part of it. This will be our first real vacation in years. We deserve a little break after all the stress. That was it. They weren't planning any trip. They were just looking for a new way to get money from me. What about the bonus? I asked, looking Noah straight in the eye. He looked away. There will be one, but less than we'd hoped. And how much less? Dorothy, who cares? He was beginning to get annoyed. The point is, we need your help. We're not asking you to pay for the whole thing, just a portion. And what is that part? Evelyn and Noah looked at each other as if they couldn't decide who should name the number. $5,000, Evelyn finally said. That will cover airfare and part of the lodging. I stared at them, not believing my ears. $5,000 for a trip they couldn't afford while the kids would be left behind for 2 weeks? And this after I'd recently paid for renovations to their house? No, I said firmly. What? Noah straightened up, his face red with anger. I said no, I'm not paying for your vacation. But Mom? Evelyn looked shocked. We work so hard. We deserve. If you work so hard, you should have saved up for your vacation yourself. I interrupted her. I recently paid for renovations to your house. I buy things for the kids on a regular basis. I pick them up from school when you need them. But I'm not going to fund your trip to France while the kids stay at home. They won't be staying home, Noah objected. They'll be with you. Isn't that what you wanted? More time with your grandchildren? Don't use the kids as a bargaining chip, Noah. My voice turned icy. Yes, I love spending time with them, but I'm not going to pay $5,000 for it. So you can spend $800 on a useless telescope, but you don't want to help your daughter have a vacation? Noah raised his voice. What a selfish woman you are, Dorothy. Noah! Evelyn tried to stop him, but it was too late. No, let her hear it, he was almost shouting, sitting on her money like a dragon on gold while we struggle to make ends meet. And when we ask for help, she refuses. What kind of mother does that to her daughter? I stood up, surprised at my own calmness. I'm leaving. This conversation is pointless. Of course you're leaving. Noah didn't hold back. Run away from your problems like you always do, but know that it will affect your communication with the kids. We may have to rearrange our schedule. Noah, that's enough. Evelyn finally intervened. Mom, please don't go off like that. Let's talk calmly. But it was too late. I had already made up my mind. If you try to restrict my communication with my grandchildren, I will go to court, I said calmly. I have a legal agreement you signed, and I'm not afraid to use it. With those words, I walked out of the kitchen. In the hallway, Oliver and Abby were waiting for me. I could tell by the looks on their faces that they had heard the argument. Grandma, don't go. Abby hugged my legs. Please. I have to go, sunshine. I leaned over and kissed her forehead. But I'll see you this weekend, I promise. And the telescope? Oliver asked, his voice shaking. Will I be able to use it? Of course, I smiled at him. It's waiting for you at my house. We'll be watching the stars when you get there. On the drive home, I felt a storm of emotions raging inside. Anger at Evelyn and Noah for their manipulation and greed, sadness at the children witnessing these horrible fights, and fear. Fear that one day Noah would actually find a way to limit my communication with my grandchildren. But the question that plagued me the most was, how do I balance my love for my grandchildren with my need to protect myself from their parents' toxic behavior? At home, the first thing I did was call my attorney, Patrick Collins. He listened to my account of recent events and took a deep breath. Dorothy, we've talked about this before. Your right to communicate with your grandchildren is protected by the agreement they signed. But if they choose to violate it, we'll have to go to court. It's a long and unpleasant process for everyone, especially the children. I know, Patrick, but what am I supposed to do? They're using the children to get money from me. I have an idea, he said after a pause. What if we set up a trust fund for the grandchildren? The money would be set aside solely for their education and future, and neither Evelyn nor Noah could access it. I wondered. This could work. The trust fund would secure Oliver and Abby's future while protecting my money from their parents. I'll think about it, Patrick. Thanks for the advice. After talking to the lawyer, I sat on the balcony for a long time, looking up at the stars and thinking about my situation. Henry had always been my best counselor in difficult matters, and now I was acutely aware of his absence. What would he say to me? How would he have acted? I remembered one of our last conversations when he already knew about his heart condition, but was hiding from me how serious it was. Dot, remember when we taught Evelyn how to ride a bike? He asked me one evening as we sat on the veranda of our house in San Bernardino. Of course we did. She was so stubborn, didn't want us to let go of the handlebars. But we let go, he smiled. And she went down, and then she got up and tried again. And she made it. What's your point, Henry? To the point that sometimes you have to let go and let a person learn on their own. Evelyn has always been prone to taking the easy way out. We may have spoiled her too much. We did the best we could. I defended us both. Yeah, but maybe not everything we should have. He took my hand. Promise me that if anything happens to me, you won't let her manipulate you. She'll try, you know her, but you have to be strong, Dot, for her own sake. At the time, I didn't understand what he was saying. Now his words made sense. I've made a decision. I will set up a trust fund for Oliver and Abby that will provide for their education and give them a financial safety cushion when they reach adulthood. But I will not give any more money to Evelyn and Noah. It doesn't help them. It only fuels their greed and irresponsibility. And as for the grandchildren, I will fight for them in every legal way I can. They deserve stability and love, not to be a bargaining chip in their parents' financial games. I didn't know exactly how this situation would be resolved, but I did know one thing. I would no longer allow anyone to use my love for my grandchildren as a weapon against me. The ringing of the phone interrupted my musings. It was Evelyn. Mom? Her voice sounded uncertain. I wanted to apologize for today. Noah crossed the line. He shouldn't have said those things. Yeah, he shouldn't have. I wasn't going to make it easy on her. It's just, we really wanted this vacation. Noah and I hardly spend any time together, all work and kids. I thought it might help our marriage. I sighed. Part of me sympathized with her. Marriage takes work, and time together is really important. But another part reminded me that this was just another manipulation. Evelyn, I understand that you need time together, but $5,000 for a trip to France is too much, especially considering your financial situation. I know, she sighed. Noah he's got big ambitions. He wants everything at once. At whose expense? She remained silent, and that was more eloquent than any answer. Look, I'll agree to take the kids for 2 weeks while you rest, I said, but I won't pay for your trip. Maybe instead of France, you could go somewhere closer? Las Vegas? San Diego? Maybe. She sounded disappointed. Thanks for the suggestion with the kids. It means a lot. We said goodbye, and I went back to my thoughts. Maybe there was a way to help Evelyn and Noah become more responsible without indulging their greed. Maybe instead of giving them money, I could help them learn to better manage what they already had. It was a daunting task, and I wasn't sure they were willing to listen. But for the grandchildren's sake, it was worth a try. After all, they deserved parents who could provide them with a stable future without constant financial crises. I decided to talk to Beatrice. She had always been a wise counselor, and I needed her straightforwardness now more than ever. This situation with Evelyn and Noah isn't going to be resolved overnight. It was going to be a long, hard road, full of compromise and probably conflict. But I was willing to go through it for my own sake, for my dignity, and most importantly, for Oliver and Abby. Henry was right. Sometimes you have to let go in order for a person to learn on their own, even if that person is your own child. June in Rancho Cucamonga was hot and dry. The temperature was over 35 degrees, and the air conditioners were running at full blast. I sat in the office of Patrick Collins, my attorney, and listened as he explained the details of the trust fund I had decided to set up for Oliver and Abby. So, Dorothy, everything is ready. Patrick handed me a stack of documents. The trust fund will be activated after you sign these papers. The money will be available to your grandchildren once they reach the age of 21 or sooner, but only for educational purposes. I flipped through the documents, taking in the legal wording. And Evelyn and Noah won't be able to access that money under any circumstances? Under no circumstances, Patrick confirmed. You will be the sole trustee of the fund until your death, at which point management will pass to an independent trustee we've already selected. Evelyn and Noah won't be able to influence the distribution of the funds or change the terms. I nodded, feeling relieved. After months of consultation and deliberation, I had finally made this decision. $150,000, $75,000 for each child, would be safe from their parents' greed and give them a good start in adulthood. It was a considerable sum, but I could afford it, and more importantly, I knew Henry would approve of my decision. There is one more thing we need to discuss. Patrick turned the page in his notes. The recent incident with your daughter and son in law. Are you sure you don't want to take more drastic measures? I sighed, remembering the events of the past few weeks. Since that memorable day of Oliver's birthday, the situation with Evelyn and Noah had only gotten worse. They hadn't gone to France like they'd planned. They really didn't have the money for that. But their attempts to manipulate me had gotten more subtle and aggressive. First, they began to limit my contact with my grandchildren, finding more and more reasons why the kids couldn't come to see me on regular days. Oliver is sick. Abby has extra classes. We've already promised the kids other plans for this weekend. I knew these were lies, especially when Oliver would call me secretly and tell me he missed me and wanted to come over, but his parents wouldn't let him. Noah then began spreading rumors about my mental health among mutual acquaintances. Dorothy is becoming forgetful. She's acting strange. We're worried she can't adequately care for the children. This was especially mean-spirited considering I was in great shape, both physically and mentally, and he knew it well. The final straw was their visit to my house 3 weeks ago. They came unannounced when I got home from work, and Noah got straight to the point. Dorothy, we need to have a serious talk about your condition, he said, sitting in my living room with the look of a concerned relative. Evelyn and I have noticed that you've been getting more and more strange. Weird? I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Well, you're living alone, working at your age, spending money on expensive things. He spread his hands. That doesn't seem like normal behavior for a woman your age. I barely held back a laugh. So being independent and financially secure is a sign of dementia? Mom, we're just worried, Evelyn interjected, though I couldn't see any genuine concern in her eyes. You've become so stubborn, refusing to help the family even though you have opportunities. I am helping my family, I replied calmly. I paid for the repairs to your house. I buy things for the children. I help with their upbringing. But you could do so much more. Noah couldn't stand it. You've got money just lying around dead weight while we're barely making ends meet. That was it. Money again, always money. If you're here to ask for financial assistance, my answer is no, I said firmly. I've already explained my position. It's not just about money. Noah changed tactics. We think it's dangerous for you to live alone. You could move back in with us. We'd keep an eye on you. And my finances? I couldn't resist being sarcastic. See, that's what we're talking about. Noah pointed a finger at me. This paranoia, this suspicion, it's not normal, Dorothy. These are signs of incipient dementia. I felt anger rising inside, but forced myself to remain calm. I had a full medical examination 2 months ago. My doctor said I'm in great shape for my age. If you have any doubts, I can provide you with a medical report. This took them by surprise. They clearly hadn't expected me to be willing to document my mental health. This isn't about paperwork. Noah quickly changed tactics. We see the way you act around the kids. These weird gifts, these conditions, it's not normal. What weird gifts? I was genuinely puzzled. That telescope. Who gives a child an $800 telescope and keeps it with them? That's manipulation, Dorothy. You're manipulating children by having them come to you to use your own stuff. I couldn't believe my ears. They were accusing me of something that was their own fault. I think it's time for you to leave. I stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. And I'd ask you not to spread any more rumors about my mental health. It could have legal repercussions. They walked away, but before they left, Noah dropped one last threat. This isn't over, Dorothy. We won't let you continue to traumatize our children with your abnormal behavior. We will find a way to protect them and ourselves from you. After they left, I immediately called Patrick and told him what had happened. He advised me to document all such incidents and assured me that they could not restrict my right to see my grandchildren based on false accusations. But they could create a lot of problems, he warned. And so now, sitting in his office, I pondered his question. Take more drastic measures? What kind? What do you suggest, Patrick? I asked. We could file a countersuit for defamation and harassment. He tapped his pen on the desk. We have evidence that your son-in-law is spreading false information about your health. This is a serious accusation that could have repercussions for his career. I wondered. Such a move might stop their attempts to discredit me, but it would also mean open warfare. And in such a war, it would be the children who would suffer the most. No, I finally decided. I don't want to escalate the conflict. Let's finish with the trust fund first, and then I'll talk to Evelyn and Noah. One last conversation. Patrick nodded, though it was obvious he doubted the success of such a strategy. Whatever you say, but be prepared that they may not react favorably to the trust fund news. I know, I started to sign the paperwork, but this is my final decision. 2 days later, I invited Evelyn and Noah to meet at a neutral location, the same Mike's Cafe where we'd met before. They agreed, probably thinking I was finally ripe to give them the money they had been asking for so long. I arrived first and chose a table in the corner, secluded enough that our conversation couldn't be heard by the other customers. I ordered tea and waited, gathering my thoughts. This was an important moment, perhaps a turning point in our relationship. Evelyn and Noah entered the cafe at exactly the appointed time. They looked tense, but I saw a spark of hope in Noah's eyes. He thought he'd won, that his manipulations and threats had worked. Mom, Evelyn sat down across from me. You wanted to talk? Yes, I folded my hands on the table. I have news that concerns us all, including the children. Noah pitched forward. We're listening. I've set up a trust fund for Oliver and Abby. I decided to get straight to the point. $75,000 each. The money will be available to them after age 21 or sooner, but only for educational purposes. Evelyn and Noah's faces reflected first surprise, then understanding, and finally anger. They had expected me to give them money, but instead I had secured their children's future by taking them completely out of the equation. A trust fund? Noah almost spit those words out. You're locking up the money for 10 or 13 years instead of helping us now when we really need it. I'm helping the kids, I replied calmly, providing for their future. What about their present? Evelyn interjected. How about the fact that we can barely pay for their sports, their music lessons? How about the fact that our house needs constant repairs? I've already paid for roof repairs, I reminded her. As for the lessons, if you provide me with the bills, I might consider paying for them directly, but I won't be giving you any more cash. Because you don't trust us. Noah looked at me with undisguised anger. You think we'll squander the money on ourselves instead of the kids, aren't we? I raised an eyebrow. You asked for $5,000 for a trip to France, leaving the kids at home. You constantly complain about not having enough money, but Noah changes his car every year. You say you can't pay for the kids' classes, but Evelyn gets manicures twice a month at the most expensive salon in town. So, yeah, I don't trust you, at least not when it comes to finances. Evelyn blushed. That's not fair. We deserve some joy in our lives. Of course you do, but not at the expense of your children's well-being and not at the expense of my money. I took a sip of tea. Look, I don't want to fight. I just want us to finally set the record straight. I won't be giving you money directly anymore. I will help your children, pay for their education, buy the things they need, build up savings for their future, but I will not fund your lifestyle. And that's your final decision? Noah asked. Yes. He leaned back in his chair, his face contorted with rage. Then you won't see your grandchildren again. We'll forbid them from associating with you. Noah, Evelyn exclaimed, but he ignored her. You don't think we can do that? We're their parents. We'll tell the school you're not allowed to take them. We won't let them stay with you on weekends. We'll move if we have to. I stared at him, marveling at his willingness to use his own children as weapons in a financial war. But I was prepared for that threat. Patrick anticipated this reaction. I pulled a folder out of my purse and placed it on the table. Here are the documents I filed with the court this morning. A motion to formally establish my visitation rights to my grandchildren. Given our existing agreement, as well as Noah's documented threats, the court will likely rule in my favor. Noah grabbed the folder and opened it. His face paled as he read. You wouldn't dare, he hissed. I already dared, I replied calmly. The hearing is scheduled for next week. You can come with or without an attorney, but I will defend my right to see my grandchildren by all legal means. Mom, why are you doing this? Evelyn looked shocked. We're a family. We're supposed to work things out together, not through the courts. I've tried, Evelyn. For the last 6 months, I've tried to compromise. But every time I gave in, you asked for more. Every time I set a boundary, you tried to break it. I'm tired of this game. It's not a game for us. Evelyn raised her voice. This is our life. We struggle every day to make ends meet, and you sit on your money and judge us. I'm not judging you, Evelyn. I'm just not going to let you manipulate me anymore. I stood up, getting ready to leave. My offer still stands. I will help the children. I will pay for their classes, their education, their medical expenses. But I will no longer give you a dime directly. This is my final decision. You'll regret it. Noah stood up as well, his voice shaking with rage. We'll do everything we can to make the children forget you. You can try. I looked him straight in the eye. But the kids are old enough to realize what's going on. They see the way you treat me. They hear your arguments about money. And one day, they'll ask you questions you can't answer. With those words, I left the cafe feeling strangely relieved. I had finally said everything I wanted to say. I had finally put an end to this toxic relationship. The next week passed in tense anticipation. Evelyn and Noah wouldn't let me see the kids, but I was able to talk to them on the phone a few times. They were confused and scared, not understanding why the adults around them were fighting. Grandma, Mommy says you don't want to see us anymore, Abby said during one such call. That's not true, sweetie, I tried to say calmly. I really do want to see you. It's just that your parents and I can't agree on some things, but we're working on it. Dad said you're mean and greedy. Oliver's voice sounded confused. But I don't believe him. You're the kindest grandma in the world. Those words warmed my soul, but they also made me think about the image Evelyn and Noah were creating of me in the eyes of the children. How far are they willing to go in their revenge? The day of the hearing came faster than I expected. I put on my best suit, arranged my hair in a neat bun, and tried to look as solid and respectable as I could. Patrick met me outside the courthouse. Are you ready, Dorothy? He asked, shaking my hand. Ready, I nodded. Whatever happens today, I know I'm doing the right thing. To my surprise, Evelyn and Noah showed up without a lawyer. They looked tired and depressed, as if they'd finally realized they'd gone too far. The hearing was short. The judge, an older woman with shrewd eyes, scrutinized all the documents, listened to both sides, and ruled. The court finds that Dorothy Hampton has a legal right to regular visits with her grandchildren, Oliver and Abigail Brooks, according to a set schedule. Any attempt by the parents to prevent these meetings without good reason will be considered contempt of court and may result in serious consequences. Evelyn cried and Noah just sat there with his head down. They had lost, and now they had to face it. After the meeting, Evelyn came up to me in the hallway. Mom, did it really have to come to this? Her eyes were red from crying. We could have resolved things peacefully. We could have, I agreed, if you had respected my boundaries and not tried to manipulate me through the kids. So now what? She looked lost. We're not a family anymore? I looked at my daughter, the woman I'd once held in my arms, the woman I'd taught to walk, to talk, to love. How had we come to this? Where had I gone wrong in her upbringing? Or was it not my mistake, but simply life, which sometimes takes people down different roads? We'll always be connected, Evelyn, I finally said. But right now, we need time and space. Perhaps one day we can rebuild trust, but not today. She nodded, too exhausted to argue. The children will be happy to see you. They miss you. I miss them too. I felt a lump come up to my throat. I'll pick them up on Saturday as usual. That was the end of our conversation. I didn't know if anything would change in our relationship after that day, if Evelyn and Noah would become more reasonable or just find new ways to make my life harder. But I did know one thing. I was no longer afraid of their threats. I was no longer letting them manipulate me. I was finally free. Saturday morning, I met Oliver and Abby at my door. They rushed toward me with joyful cries, and I hugged them as tightly as I could. Grandma, we missed you so much. Oliver wouldn't let go of me. Daddy said we couldn't come to see you anymore, but Mommy said he was wrong. Your mom is right, I smiled. You can always come to me, always. We spent the weekend watching the stars through the telescope, playing board games, and just enjoying each other's company. I didn't talk to the kids about court or conflict with their parents. They deserved a serene childhood free from adult problems. When it was time to bring them home, Abby gave me a big hug. Grandma, I'm so glad you're back with us, she whispered. Please don't ever leave. I'm not going anywhere, sunshine, I promised. No matter what happens, I'll always be here for you. As I drove back home, I reflected on my journey over the past few months. I had lost my husband, felt betrayed by my daughter, endured manipulation and threats, but I have also gained independence, confidence, and most importantly, a new understanding of what it means to be strong. Henry had always told me, Dot, real strength is not in not falling down, but in always getting up. Now I understood what he meant. Life would continue to present me with challenges, but I was no longer afraid of them. I was ready to face the future with an open heart and a clear head. In my apartment, I sat on the balcony with a cup of tea and watched the sunset. There was a whole life ahead of me, a new life that I could live on my own terms. I could travel, pursue hobbies, spend time with friends, and of course, my grandchildren. I could finally live for myself and not for the expectations of others. A phone call interrupted my musings. It was Beatrice. So, Fighter, how was your weekend with the kids? She asked in her chipper voice. Wonderful, Bee, I smiled. Just great. What about Evelyn and that hubby of hers? Have they calmed down since the trial? So far, yes, but I'm not getting complacent. This is just the beginning of a long journey. The important thing is that you don't let them push you around anymore, Beatrice always said bluntly. You know, I'm proud of you, Dot. Not every woman your age would have found the strength to start a new life. Thank you, Bee. I felt tears of gratitude come to my eyes. I don't know what I would have done without your support. Oh, come on. You would have made it through. You've always been stronger than you thought you were. After talking to Beatrice, I sat on the balcony for a long time, watching the first stars appear in the sky. I thought of Henry, how he loved those quiet evenings, how we dreamed of the future together. I thought of Evelyn, the little girl who had once looked at me with adoration, but was now a stranger, almost hostile. I thought of Oliver and Abby, of their clear eyes and pure hearts that I'd sworn to protect at all costs. And I thought of myself, Dorothy Hampton, who, at 67, had discovered that life was just beginning.